SEO Fundamentals, lesson number 7. What is SEO experiment? Bonjour les amis, hello my friends, my name is Bohdan, this is my True SEO School, the course SEO Fundamentals, and we are approaching lesson number 7, where we discuss SEO experiment. We already started touching on the topic of SEO experiment previously, but let's go deep with it. But before we do so, let's quickly catch up with what we discussed previously in the lessons number 4 to 6, which were grounded in the idea of the data acquisition funnel. So what we learned in the later 3 lessons from 4 to 6 is a data acquisition funnel. Its characteristic of SEO is quite long and successive, which means that the data acquisition starts from bots, not humans, that come to a page which serves as a pivotal element in data acquisition, page or URL, and then this data acquisition funnel proceeds to the visible part, or the part where humans appear on a stage, where they begin interacting with the page, with the elements on the page. And this is where the funnel gets more clear to us. It's human-faced, and we collect, and we go on collecting data here. This type of combined funnel creates the idea of different types of data. Some are technical, some are more descriptive of marketing. This is human-related, like links, impressions, and so on. Whereas technical data, they are quite viewed to the ears and eyes of marketing professionals and so on. Because they mostly connected to the engineering world. So the SEO data, diverse as they are, might require interpreting. Because apart from being technical and non-technical, the SEO data hinges upon URL or page also involve the idea of search query or search keyword, which requires interpretation, and this interpretation must be done in line with the company business model or internally. We also discussed that SEO optimization may take form on 2 levels. The technical level, which is mostly invisible to humans, like tweaking the code, and on the visible level, this is to say, on the level of content of page, dealing with the quality of content. And here to the stage comes the idea of experiment, because we ain't got no requirements to do. We ain't got no direct things from customers or search engines. Apart from some smaller technical things, everywhere we go, we need experimenting. And these experiments take form of 2 larger ones. First is vote for this, or would you prefer a customer this or that option of a version of a page. And another type of experiment is vote for us. So it means that you, customer, would like this website or this web page from this visibility level, for example, a position number 1 on a certain search query, or that the competitor website from the same position. That means that acquiring or accumulating data, we go and tell search engines that this position is more effective when it's given to this enterprise than to the competitor. And these polls are going constantly, and the SEO takes active part in staging these experiments. And this is how we came to the idea of the goal of SEO, because goal of SEO is something that goes without saying in most of the activity. But what is the goal of SEO? Don't we say the goal of SEO is to increase traffic? No, we go on and say the goal of SEO is to try to arrive at certain hypotheses coming from the analysis of data, trying to assess the viability of this hypothesis, and to prepare conditions for testing hypotheses, like what data do we need, what type of experiments do we take, and then finally disseminated the knowledge gained from this type of experiments, and in the very end try to contribute to the creation of stable infrastructure to the processes and institutions in order to get these processes repetitive. So, what is SEO experiment? It is when the customer announces his or her choice, what is perceived as useful, vis-a-vis a certain search intent. We got a customer, we got a page that contains some icon or symbol of utility, and we got a customer's search intent, why exactly he or she came searching. So in this triangle here occurs the announcement whether or not this symbol of utility satisfies the adequate threshold of quality as regards this particular search intent, search motivation. In the sense, a person who is doing experiment or organization, this is SEO unit, is doing constant investigating into the actual state of a customer utility. What is perceived as util today, as of now? This investigating goes with two attributes. First is cost of investigating, and then it's cost of adoption of results. So let's discuss how I see how cost of investigating must be seen. Whatever type of experiment goes on has internal cost, cost to organization to set and frame this experiment, and also cost to, say, search engine or the stage in order to provide infrastructure resources for customers to vote for this select page. So we have a metaphor of election or voting between several alternatives, or two alternatives, the state 0, the old ones, state 1, the new ones. This election has been staged by search engine, which provides architecture for this, and the options for which customer votes has been provided by enterprise. So this cost of investigation, as discussed, as cost for enterprise, cost for infrastructure providers, this is to say search engine. And if we go deeper into this, we will find that this cost of investigation on a philosophical level has three important things. Is a time frame. So whether or not the result that we get will be viable for tomorrow, will be held as true tomorrow. So even if we get some positive affirmation or impact, we've seen the connection between what we test and the results, say financial results. It doesn't actually mean that tomorrow we'll have the same connection. Another cost is measured or is given by uncertainty. Before having any type of experiment, we don't know whether or not it's even yield some results. So uncertainty as to the imminent results of experiment and also as to the future results of experiment. The cost of uncertainty is something that is attributive of experiment, and we are not sure every time we do it, we are not sure that it's not even a misconception or mistake, or it's a outlier, statistical outlier. Finally, the third cost is a cost of so let's call it strength of signal. We don't know what kind of strength of signal we must see to be able to say this is a successful experiment. If it's too high, we might not get this results. If it's too low, then it can be noise. Voila. And the second group is a cost of adoption. So for example, even if we take a risk and go to experimenting with customer utility, and customer votes for this option. And we despise the idea of this is not certain. So we say, okay, we've got proofs. We despise the idea of the strength of signal. We say we are confident, more or less confident. We despise the idea of time frame. We don't know how long this state of mind of customer will last. Okay, we are more or less confident. So that comes in the cost of adoption. For example, we did experiment on a limited number of pages, but in order to expand it over the website, we must incur significant costs. Or, which is more common, is that we've got some we introduced some changes, but we are not actually able to reproduce them constantly. So we can do this once, but not forever, because we don't got the infrastructure, we don't got the processes set up this way. This is how the SEO experiment goes like a little to forward of the company itself. So we can have some positive information, but the company cannot actually. It's a promise that is not yet kept. If we take these three elements, the cost of investigating, this is to say, the cost of volatility of results, the cost of confidence in the results, and what is called stability of returns in the future, the cost of it. So we may find that the distribution thereof belongs exclusively to the search engines and customers. Likewise, search engines impact the cost of volatility and the cost of confidence, whereas customers define the cost of stability of returns. This is to say, the cost of investigating depends on two external resources, customer and search engine. So, in effect, this is the enterprise that bears the cost of investigating, but this is an external subject, customer and search engine, that has a control over the actual cost of it. So the search engine that controls the cost of volatility do so by applying different weight to signals through updating its algorithm. So if a search engine wants to raise a cost of uncertainty for you, the enterprise, he will put the different or new weights to the signals of different ranking factors. And what you have calculated is to be 100,000 euro, in effect, through this update of Google algorithm, which is called the cost of volatility of signals, will be, for example, 180,000. So 80% increase in the cost of uncertainty. The cost of confidence, once again, it can be done by search engine alone. For example, through the postponed effect of experiment. So you do experiment, you get no confident result. You do it once then again and over again, you don't get the confidence you need. So effectively, you are acting blind. And this is also what search engine can control. What it produces to is that search engine says we want to control the cost of this in order to defend from manipulations, to fight the manipulators. In the philosophical sense, it means that the search engine postulates that the enterprise doing search engine optimization cannot infer customer utility strictly from this SEO experiments. There has to be other way to learn on the customer utility except for SEO experiments. It's a fundamental postulate, a principle that we discover here. So by the simple fact that search engine controls the cost of experiments, it can make it intolerably high. That means that you want to discourage SEO from making too many experiments to arrive at customer utility. It says have other way to define customer utility except for running endless SEO experiments. The customer controls the cost of stability of returns. This is a something we cannot actually control. It's beyond the control because customer can change their mind, influenced by lots of things and so on and so on. In the limit of it, this cost of investigating may end up to be as a strictly increasing factor because the information we get from experiment gets blurred, noisy, we ain't got no confidence in it, we ain't got a certainty as to the future, as we can have the future returns the same way. And finally, customers may change their minds. So the experiments are increasingly costly, which brings us to the important conclusion here that on the level of SEO, say, strategy or sequence of action, it has to be parsimonious, very minimal. So the idea of SEO to get the data from as low number of efforts as possible. Let's conclude this lesson by summary, small summary. So we've discussed that SEO uses experiment as the only way to learn on a customer utility. Except for this, SEO can have some technical guidance from Google in terms of optimization of certain obvious things that can be done by strictly following the guidance. But in the majority of cases, this is through SEO experiment that we can actually learn what is useful for customers. But at the same time, the experiment bears two important implications. First is the cost of investigating. We can investigate or probe into customer utility, but it comes with a cost that is controlled solely by the external factors or external subject. This is customer himself, because he can change their mind later on, or search engine or provider of the infrastructure of this experiment, because search engine may recalculate the signals or may postpone the effect within the experiment, so we cannot understand exactly what connects to what leads to what. And others, the reflection of this cost of investigation is a cost of adoption. Building this house on this not solid ground will increase the cost of adoption of things we learned or things we get from the experiment, and it will make the cost intolerable. This leads us to the important notion that SEO strategy or SEO activity must be parsimonious. So it must be very picky in terms of what type of experiments to run, how to frame and set the experiments. In other words, how to save the company money by being able to arrive at some important data that will shed the light on customer utility.